Hey, welcome everybody to the installation here of Wired for Bass. I'm Big Ed, your host, and today we went out and got Philip Dutra, who just had a heck of a day up on Lake Camanche. Well, he had a heck of a 3 days. Everybody was out there in 107, 108, 110 degree heat. Fishing wasn't the best. It was just one of those things, but this guy went out there, he grounded out, and he came back with, if you look over his right shoulder, you'll see a big old trophy, and that right there is what it's all about. Philip, thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate you coming on to the show. Congratulations.
Yeah, glad to be here and excited to be here.
Now, you just told me before you got there, you're sitting where right now?
I'm at the Toxic Baits headquarters, so they're one of my sponsors. They've been with me. I've been with them since the very, very beginning. It's been, I think it's been over 15 years. When he was making his first swim bait, he made for me, and I have the original Toxic Bait swim bait, and then he was just making them for me and one other guy and himself for about 8 years. So there was just 3 guys throwing them. And then I don't know the exact dates, but probably about 6-7 years ago, he started to ramp it up. And then about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he went full time, quit his job, has a shop now. So he has a storefront, and then where they have all their employees that make all the baits in the back here. So it's right next to where I live. It's homegrown. It's part of how I've grown up bass fishing, was throwing toxic baits. So they've been a big part of my success over the years. And actually, some of the key baits that I throw that he makes are right here behind me as well. So
very nice. That's good to keep it down home. And where are you out of right here?
In Antioch, California.
In Antioch. Okay. So this is, for me, this is actually a pretty local company, pretty close to home. So that's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Apex, and talk to us a little about how you like the formats and how you like everything that's going on with it. Is this something you're real happy with?
Absolutely. I was telling some people earlier today, and it's pretty cool because for those of you guys that don't understand or know what Apex is about, it's the first year. It's its inaugural year. So still people are figuring out what is Apex, how do you become a part of it, what's the format, all those questions. And what's pretty cool is when we got invited last year, the first group of guys, which was an invite through qualifications of fishing the traditional Wild West tournaments, the bass, the pro-ams, they took the top 25 guys for the first year. And then moving forward, they're going to take, I believe it's 10 per year. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 per year. And then once I believe they're also trying to expand the field either to 40 or 50 guys, and then they'll cap it there. And then each year, 10 guys will be able to qualify in, and then the bottom 10 guys will fall out. But what I love about Apex, I'll say this, all the 32 guys that are in it this year, we're all saying the same thing. And I think what's pretty special about that is we're not being paid to say that. We're not being forced to say that. No one's telling us to say how fun it is, how exciting it is, how it's way more fun than I could have imagined. And the story behind it, for me, at least my experience and how I became a part of it, when I got the invite, we went to these meetings, we heard what it was about. Right off the bat, I told my wife I love the way that they presented it to us. It was very professional. They called a meeting for us all to come together, a private meeting. We talked about a lot of things. There's a lot of angler input, which I love. We got to vote on the format. We got to vote on the payout structures. We got to vote on a lot of things. So the anglers are a very big part of the actual organization. Jeremy and then Randy, who run it, amazing people who I've got to know a little bit more as time's gone on. And to see their passion and their, not just passion, but their business mind. I'm pretty business minded. I own an investment company. And I'm always thinking business-minded things, and so I'm a critic when it comes to business or things that I think people do wrong or right. And I told my wife when the first meeting we had, I said, "Man, babe, I'm blown away, and I'm shocked with how professional they were. I see the vision, and so that's how it started. The format is something that we voted on. It's pretty cool. It was so it's a 3-day format that." The first 2 days are the exact same. Day 3 is completely different. So the first 2 days on the format, and and one cool thing about Apex is in Wild West is when you fish the Apex, there's twists and turns involved in it, which make it fun and exciting. So well, first to start, there's no pre-fish. It's 30 days off limits, 100% off limits. There's no, no information roll. And then the way that it works is you show up to the lake the day before. We go to a mandatory meeting. The next morning, we have a 30-minute drive around. So we get 30 minutes, which is not much time at all to drive around the lake. You can't fish. You can throw your, you can drop your trolling motor in the water. You can idle around, do whatever you want, but you can't fish. You have to be back at the ramp, and then they release us. So no one's fished the lake for at least 30 days, talked about it, any of that. And the format, so the format is really unique. They did a hybrid format where they wanted to be unique. And so they said, how do we blend what's popular with MLF, with bass, and also be our own uniqueness in itself and blend it all together? And so the way that Apex is structured is the first 2 days of competition. Currently, there's 32 anglers. That is going to grow to, again, like I said, either 40 or 50, and then they'll cap it at that for good. But everybody fishes the first 2 days. There's 2 ways to qualify for the final day, the day 3. And the 2 ways are, one is your traditional 5-fish format. So your biggest 5 fish per session. So for instance, in Camanche, we had 2 sessions on the first day, 1 session on the second day. So that was a 15 fish total, but it's still your biggest 5 fish per session. And then they take the top 5 guys in the weight qualifications for day 3. The other way that you qualify, they take 5 other guys from total keeper count. So just most amount of keepers. I think it's a 14-inch minimum everywhere we go. And so the most amount of keepers got. We use a Tourney X platform where we have it on our phones. It's an app, and we have a board. So every time we catch a fish, because there's no co-anglers, which is really nice too. There's also no nets, which I'll get into in a minute. So every time we catch a fish, we put it on this official board they give us. We take a picture, we submit it. They have an official back at the trailer who goes through all the pictures and whatnot and makes it official. So that keeps track of your keeper count. It also is really cool because if you're a fan, my wife, my friends, all kinds of people are able to tune in on throughout the day and look at the Tourney X platform. Now it's unofficial, just like the way Bass Tracker does it for Bassmasters. It's a pretty, it's a good guess, but it gives you a feel where people are currently in their weight, in their keeper count. The keeper count is accurate, but the weight is an estimate. So, for instance, I weigh my fish. So when I input them and I put in exactly what I weigh, it comes out pretty close to my official weight. So people can watch it and follow it along through the day, which is really cool. I think what I love, and I've told this to many people in the last couple of days, when I became a part of Apex, I became a part of it because I saw the vision, I saw the potential, I liked what Jeremy and Randy were saying. But to be completely honest, I wasn't sold that I was going to love the format. But regardless, I thought it was its inaugural year. I want to be a part of something growing and new. So I just said, hey, I want to do it because my ultimate goal is to go back east and fish the Elite Series. And I felt like this would help me become a better angler. So be fish quicker, learn quicker, adjust quicker because of no practice. So you have to, and because you have the score tracker updates, so we can view them as well. So I can see where my competition is throughout the day, which makes a whole nother level of stress and anxiety, and it just changes your strategies and your thoughts and all kinds of things. It can be good or bad, depending, I guess, who you are and how you use it. So anyway, so as we fished the first event it was the first unofficial. It was like a test trial run, I guess you can say, up at the Columbia River, at the John Day River. When I fished that event, I instantly fell in love with the format. And I'm not paid to say this. I'm not forced to say this.
Great.
I fell in love, and I had so much fun. I told my wife, like, this is the funnest format I've ever fished. I can't believe if it was all 5 fish, which I'm a fan of, it would be just another tournament, which is great. And I love all 5 fish, but it wouldn't be unique. If it was only keeper count, it would be unique, but I'm kind of a fan of not just catching a bunch of 14 inchers. You want to see people catch both. And so you want to see people catch numbers. You want to see people catch big ones and target big fish. And so because they blended this format, then what it does is it actually makes for multiple strategies, because you can go out there fishing and you're like, hey, I'm going to target these keepers for 2 days, or I'm going to target spotted bass. So depending on what fisher you are, maybe I might catch smaller ones in this part of the lake, or another guy might say, hey, I know where I want to just target bigger fish. I feel like I might not get that many bites. They all work. Now, the beautiful thing is come day 3, They zero the weights, they zero everything out. The top 10 guys go, and then what I love is they go back to the traditional old school bass fishing, your best 5 fish. So I love it that it keeps the 5 fish, your biggest 5 fish, throughout the whole format, and especially on the third and final phase. But the first 2, when you have the keeper count, it's a complete different, unique format, thought process. Everything is different, and so that's the layout of the format. There's no nets, which makes it extremely exciting. When the video and when it comes out on I believe the Pursuit channel on YouTube, you'll see I'm not the greatest without a net. I'm still working on that. But it makes for way more great TV, more suspense, more adrenaline on my end, panic, emotions, because you get the fish by the boat and it's not like he's just in the boat now. That's half the battle. Now you got to get him and switch your hands and find out where you're going to, figure out where you're going to lay down on the boat and try to grab them if they got treble hooks in their mouth or whatever. And so it is, put it like this, my blood pressure and my heart rate were through the roof each tournament. And but it makes it fun. I genuinely can say I'm so glad I'm involved in this, and I would love to continue to participate.
So one of the questions that I've been asked a couple times was, and I talked to one of the other anglers about this, was the Tourney X. You talked about the Tourney X. The Tourney X doesn't. It has to work off a signal. So sometimes when you're in a place where there's no signal, you can still weigh your fish, right? Your fish can still be counted. They can still be weighed. You're not like waiting for a signal. You don't have to put them in the box and store them. You actually could still do that and then release the fish. And then when you get back to signal, then you turn everything in.
Correct. Exactly correct. So yeah, day 1 and day 2, I came up the river and there was no service up there. So I couldn't input those fish, or they wouldn't hit the system until I got to the main lake and I got service. So so there's that where if you have no service, it won't input until somebody gets the service. So
okay, yeah, I just wanted it because that was a question I'd been asked a couple of times. Was I didn't see the Tourney X. It didn't input, and then all of a sudden at the very end, everybody was catching. So were they just catching fish at the very end of the day, or were they catching fish all day? And I had got the answer from a couple other people, but I wanted to pose that on here and let people know. So
there was a couple guys. There was a couple guys that were going up the river, and they were staying up, and they wouldn't be able to post it until they got back to the main lake at the end of the day. I was one of those guys the first 2 days.
So, well, let's talk about the first couple days, and then we'll get into the last day. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what I don't know, fishing Antioch a lot. I know that you're a Delta guy. I know you fish that water quite a bit and enjoy that. Was this your first time to Camanche?
So I've been to Camanche 2 times in January 3 years ago, and then before the cutoff 1 day. So essentially, summertime fishing, no, I've never been there. And at the lake in general, I've been there 2 times before ever, and that was in January a couple of years ago. So didn't have basically the only thing that I gained, I guess, from being there twice was I just knew what the lake looked like, but not necessarily even underwater. I just had a good idea of the way it laid out, which you can pretty much see from a GPS at home as well. So very little experience there at all, almost none.
So going into it, you really didn't have any preconceived notions of what you were going to be throwing or how you were going to be approaching this lake, I'm guessing that's kind of the theme of what they're doing, because the next one is at the After Bay, and they've already announced that. So it's like, and there's probably not very many people have been there. So this is probably one of the biggest things I like about the Apex is that they're putting you guys on waters. I mean, you went to the John Day River, then you went to Almanor, then you went to Camanche, now you're going to the After Bay. And it's like, these are all bodies of water that honestly, most people probably haven't fished. Or if they have, it was once or it was twice. It's not like the Delta. It's not like Clear Lake. It's not like, Oroville, Shasta, you name it. Nobody has a great advantage. And then you put the 30 days in there. This is, nobody's picking up any super advantages on this. So going into this, you really didn't have anything going on. So how did you kind of approach, going out and how would you tell somebody, hey, this is how I go out and pre-fish to just figure out what's going on the lake?
Yeah, great.
We have a process that we call simple price, simple process. And what that means is we take our lowest and best price and we post it on every single car. There's no back and forth. And by simple process, what that means is when you meet somebody, they can handle every aspect of what you do in your card transaction buying experience from beginning to end.
Yeah, great idea or question. So yeah, and I love that what they're doing, how you mentioned going to these lakes. And what I love is that tests our skills. Even if you had an off limits, but you had it at Clear Lake or the Delta or Shasta, guys have been there 1,000 times. Even if they haven't been able to go there for a couple months, they still know the lake, right? So we're going to bodies of water that the majority of us, everywhere we go, have never been, have no clue. There's not much history or anything. So great question. So how do I approach it? The first thing I do in all tournaments is I do my homework at home, right? So we're allowed to look at public information. I can look at my GPS. I can look at Google Earth. I can go on, on the internet and whatnot. So I got a basic idea of the depths. I get a basic idea of the layout, the humps, the river channels, all that good stuff from home. And then you do your basic research of what's considered a good fish at that body of water for that time of year. So Camanche has really big fish in it. I think there was a 40-pound bag weighed out of there earlier in the year on a tournament by Alex Neapolis, correct? But so there's really big fish in there. But if you look at at least the research that I was able to come up with, summertime, you catch a lot of 2 to 2.25 pounders, pound and a halfers. 13 to 15 pounds seems to be a pretty good bag, right? So that's what I do first is figure out from home, what am I targeting? What's the lake look like? What time of year it is? And then what kind of species? So there's spotted bass and largemouth. Do the spotted bass play? Are there enough largemouth? You do all that because there's a lot of lakes you go to like Shasta where certain times of year it's pretty much 98% spotted bass. You're not targeting smallmouth, and there are largemouth in there. Guys can kind of target them, but so you got to understand how you're going to approach the lake before you get there. I knew that the lake was generally a clear water lake, not a lot of grass. So these are all the things that I'm putting into my, I guess you can say, processor. I'm processing all these things before I get there. So, okay, no grass, clear water. I know there's island humps, there's wood, there's a river, there's a main lake, creek channels and whatnot. So then you get a 30-minute drive around, and the 30-minute drive around is like, it's an instant. It happens instantly. So what I try to do on the few times we've done these is I try to drive around as much of the lake as I can in 30 minutes just to get a visual. Like that's it. You can graph, but you graph for 5 minutes and you drive somewhere for 5 minutes and back. There's half the time, right? So the basic idea, watercolor. Hey, that's cool. Whatever. There's some trees over here. Whatever that may be. So I just kind of drive around the lake and try to get a good feel. I do stop the boat maybe 2 or 3 times for 2 minutes or so, if that, and just graph around. If there's something that I really liked that I saw at home, but I don't know what it looks like underwater, but I know that, there was a ledge or something that really looked good for this time of year, I'll go grab that really quick. I think also obviously understanding the time of year, right? So I know that, okay, we're in the heat of the summer. It was actually, you said 105, 110 degrees. It was actually 116 on day one. It was unbelievable. So it's really hot. So you kind of figure what techniques are going to play, what techniques are not going to play. So, one of the things that you'll hear me say, people hear this from me all the time, is I always talk about strategy, versatility, execution. Those are the 3 things that I bring into every tournament. I go into it with a strategy. The strategy, the words are abroad. It's just a word, but there's so much in depth of each of those words. So the strategy is all the things I just talked about. What are we targeting? Well, are there more spotted bass? Is it easier to catch numbers to spotted bass? Where do the largemouth live? And then the strategy continues to develop throughout the tournament, especially with the Tourney X platform, because you know where your competition is. Are they catching more fish than I am? Am I doing something wrong? Do I need to adjust, or am I ahead of everybody else? Therefore, maybe I don't need to change much. So the strategy originally, because there's not a lot of practice, the strategy kind of evolves during day one as quick as I can. I think the key for my success this last couple of years is the versatility as well, being able to do everything. So spinning rod, big wake baits, frogs punching, reaction, top water, you name it, you have to be able to do it all. And for me, I think that was probably the winning theme for me. Was there was a lot of guys there that only power fish. There was a lot of guys that only finesse fish. And I caught multiple fish power fishing and multiple fish I weighed in, crucial fish every day of the tournament on a finesse rod and on a power rod. So I approached the lake day one after the ride around. you go back to the dock, they do the national anthem and prayer, and then they send you out. And, you go to where you think you just, okay, it's summertime. Are the fish going to be deeper? Are they going to eat topwater in the morning? I think the thing that I've learned the most is you have to adjust instantly. Like, you have to adjust so fast because there's no practice. So you don't get to spend 2 days to really kind of feel the lake out. You don't. But when you're feeling the lake out, your money's on the line and people are catching fish right now. So you have to adjust really quick. So for me, I have 30 to 35 rods in the rod locker when I get to the lake. And then I have at least 14 on the deck. And because we don't have co-anglers, I put another 5 where the co-anglers sit. So I'm close to 20 rods on the deck, essentially. And I try to figure out instantly what's going on. Once I caught my first fish, it took me about an hour and a half. That's the first time I looked at Score Tracker. And I realized I actually thought there was going to be a lot more fish caught. I think everybody did. But when I looked at the Score Tracker and I saw that I was way up there with 1 fish, and it was an hour and a half in, I realized instantly, okay, wait a minute, this bite is not happening. So I can slow down a little bit. What I caught my fish on, I can try to expand. It's not like it's off to the races and I'm behind. So I'll stop there real quick. I don't want to ramble too much. Any specific questions that I went over that you have? Or
Not yet. I mean, it's one of those. The only thing I looked at was what you said right there was that you looked at the Tourney X, and this is, I think, where a little bit of that, maybe some of that issue comes in. I don't know if it is or not. People might have been blowing it up and they were upriver or someplace where you couldn't see what they were doing. So would that have lulled you into a little bit of a or of a, maybe you were feeling better than you actually were? That's kind of one of those catch-22s right there. If there's no signal or no service and nobody can actually put in,
great point.
Where does that put you?
So yeah, I felt like I knew most of the anglers were going to be on the main body of water. The river's not really big there compared to other places, and so I felt like the majority. And you can see it's a small lake, so you can kind of see a lot of boats running around. I feel like that could be true, but overall, and I knew that going in, but I feel like overall, just knowing that the lake is fishing way tougher than I thought. Even if it was good upriver, it's still, everything is way tougher than what so I felt good about that. And I started on the main lake, but then very shortly after that, I did run up the river. And because I ran up the river, you can kind of see as you're driving who's there and and so you kind of feel that out. And so as I went up the river, there wasn't a ton of boats up there. There was a handful, and they were spread out. And I went to an area. There was some bait there, and I just, because I knew the bite was tough, I would really rotate, fish really fast, and then fish really slow, fish really fast and really slow, and depending upon at each spot. But I fished really slow the majority of the tournament. I did fish really fast for parts, and I did weigh, I think, 5 fish fishing really fast. So they were very valuable. I think, if I heard right, I think Jared Littner caught almost all his fish fishing fast, and he took second. So, and you kind of figure that when you go to a tough fishery, you kind of, it's either going to be ultra fast, you got to make them react, or it's going to be ultra, ultra slow. The in-between stuff, at least in my opinion, generally doesn't work well when fishing is really tough. So knowing that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep some really slow moving spinning baits or whatnot in my hand, and I'm going to keep some ultra fast topwater stuff in my hand. And that's kind of was my approach. So when I went up the river, go ahead.
What did you end up picking up? So what was that tool? What was that bait that you decided, hey, this is the one I'm going to fish fast on top? What did that end up being?
Yeah, I rigged up, it's again, because I start with so many rods. I originally had a popper, a spook, a walker, a buzz bait kind of style bait, and then I had another topwater too. So I just, and you know how it is when you kind of know each application or which one works better for the scenario. So, but I would rotate all those baits, and quickly in the morning, I was throwing a spook, and I would rotate to the popper and the cane walker, and then we got a little chop, a little cloudy. So I ended up catching them on the cane walker, and I kind of kept that in my hand when it was windy. It was a little breezy in some parts. Like, it wasn't really windy bad, but there were some areas that had, some little chop on it. So I caught it on that, gave me obviously some confidence. And then when I but I only caught 2 fish on the main lake on the first day, session 1. I ran up the river. I found kind of a school of spotted bass, and obviously a lot of times they're more aggressive. They can school a little bit more.
Right.
So I caught 1 spotted bass when I ran up the river. But when I caught it, there were some fish with it. I saw the fish with it. And then and then I lost 1 more. I lost a good one, like a 2.5 pounder, because of the no net deal. I got it right to the boat, couldn't get it in. Then I had to get in immediately to weigh in on session 1. So session 1, I only had 3 fish. 2 came out of the main lake, 1 came out of the river. But I also saw a bunch more in the river, and I had another one I lost in the river in a short amount of time. So I had a big decision to make on the second session. It was about 4.5 hours. So it's a much shorter session. It's in the middle of the day. If you go up the river, it's 20 miles an hour and then 5 miles an hour. So you can waste 30 minutes just getting back in the back of the river if you want to go that far. And that's each way. And on a 4.5 hour tournament, that's a big commitment. So the session 2, there were so many boats on the water on the main lake. I just felt like I just need to get away all the traffic. I mean, there's just jet skiers and wakeboarders and ski boats everywhere. So, and it's a small lake. So I decided I'm going to commit to going up the river. I felt like what I saw up there. And also I knew that I had 3 fish, and I was in, I want to say I was in the top 10 on numbers or something. It was really tough.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, I'm not way behind. So I'm going to go up the river and give it more time. So I went back up the river, and I actually caught 8 fish in that second session. And I lost another one. And that was a huge call and decision, and it worked out for me. They were mostly, smaller spotted bass. I did catch a couple largemouth. And I had to mix it up. I caught them on different baits. I caught them on the top water. I caught them on a drop shot. I caught them on a bunch of different spinning rods that I would just rotate. And so then we came back in on day 1, and that was the end of day 1, 2 sessions. And I was in 3rd in keepers with 11, and I was in 6th in weight. And I think I had like 15. I think I had 15 pounds for 2 sessions. I had 10 pounds for the second and like 5.5 pounds for the first. So again, you're looking at, for me, I'm a data guy. So I'm looking at the data, and I'm like, wow, the bite is really tough. Even the guys up the river. Now I've been up the river and on the main body, and everybody's weighed in. The fishing is tough. I'm doing pretty good in both. So day 2, or did you have any other questions, or do you want me to keep going into day 2?
Nope, keep going. You're doing good.
Yes. Day 2, because I looked at the keeper count at night, and I looked at where everybody was, I think I had 11 keepers. And if I remember right, 6th place keepers was 7. So 5th place 9, you need to be in the top 5. But 6th place, which would have to bump somebody, they were at 7. So they were 4 behind me. And so I told myself, day 2 is a Saturday, not a Friday, so more boat traffic. Day 2, we only had 1 session, so we had 5 hours less to finish day 2 because that was 2 sessions.
Right.
So I felt like there's no way the bite was going to get better. So I felt like if I could get 3 keepers, I had a really good chance. 4 keepers, I felt 99%, and I said if I can get 5 keepers, I'm in for sure because I already had a 4 keeper cushion lead. That was my strategy, was catch 3 to 5 fish. I don't care how big they are. The size doesn't matter right now. I just need to catch 3 to 5 fish to get in on numbers. So I went up the river. I got 5 bites. I hooked 4 of them. I landed 3 of them. I lost another one at the boat because of the no net, trying to rotate the rod and all that, which is exciting. But again, I'm not the best people are going to see on camera on day 3. I got a little work on the landing part. But anyway, so I caught 3. I knew I was going to be right on the bubble. I was the 10th place spot to qualify. I somehow have a bad knack of that. I just was 10th on the Delta, and then I ended up taking 2nd a month ago. So I have this bad knack of qualifying in 10th or 9th spot. I want to start being up a little higher when I qualify, but I got it. That's all that mattered. And then day 3 was, we're here to win. Everybody, you're talking about 32 of the best anglers in the West. These are
Let me ask you that real quick. So I've always been a proponent of it. What do you think about that? Hey, all of a sudden, you worked and worked and worked, you got to where you were at, and then boom, everybody, the top 10 is now 0. Are you happy with that? Do you like that? Do you not? Are you more of a, I'd rather keep the stuff I got, or?
Yeah. So I'll say that. So this is so interesting because I'm going to be the honest out of everybody. Like, I'm always going to tell people what I don't like and what I like. And and like I told you guys in the beginning, before we started the season, I thought I wasn't going to care for the format. That's the honesty. I didn't. Now I love it. It's my favorite format. I have never been a fan of resetting the weights in traditional, and I still am not, in traditional 5 fish. If I go fish Bassmasters or FLW, I don't want to reset the weight. If you're going to keep, if it's all 5 fish every day, then you not reset the weight, in my opinion. I remember MLF or FLW 7, 8, 10 years ago, they tried it for a year or two. Nobody liked it, including myself, and they got rid of it. But in this format, it actually doesn't bother me at all. And regardless of whether I won this or not, I said this from the first event. And the reason is because the format is so unique and different that if you're going out to qualify on keepers, then it's not the same playing field. So you're playing with 2 different fields in the first session or first, bracket of this format. So because it's a completely different bracket style in the final day, which is only 5 fish, you kind of have to reset it. And I'm actually okay. It's so weird because my whole life, and again, I still am in 5 fish. I hate resetting the weights in a traditional everyday 5 fish format. I'll never be for it. But in this format, I think it's the only way to do it because you're dealing with a completely unique, different, multiple things going on at once. So I think it's only fair to do that. So so I'm okay with that.
Okay, yeah, because that's.
Basscat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. From the working end of the bow to the command center and stern, this turnkey tournament-ready package comes loaded with features to enhance your on-the-water experience. The Puma FTD-SP from Basscat is willing, able, and more than ready for your next adventure.
Okay, yeah, because that's one of those ones, like you said, I've always liked it. I think final day, it's like you qualify for it and you make it. But like you said, with this format, if you've got somebody that went out there, and I think in the end, it levels the playing field for the guys who went out there and said, I know I'm not on, 20 pounds of fish. I better go catch, 30 fish. Because there's a point in every tournament where tournaments I've fished where it's like, hey, I just need points at this point. I know I'm not winning this one all of a sudden. I need points. I'm going to go catch the, a limit really quick. Well, if every fish counts for a little bit, legal ones anyways, if all those count, then you better start wrapping those, getting into those. That's great. And when you do get to that last day, it's like, yeah, those guys I think they get a little bit of a bump, and it's like, okay, now I can try. I know a little bit more. Maybe I stuck a couple good ones in there and I figured something out. So it does give them a little bit of I don't want to say practice day because they went out and just caught as many 12 or 14 inches as they could, but it gives them a little bit of a practice day, honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So going in the last day, you're still top water and drop shot is your two main sources of what you're catching fish on. Everything's level. What was your mindset at this point? Where were you going? Hey, I've got to go do this to catch the best 5 now.
Yeah, my mindset was I told my wife the night before, I want to win. It's an even playing field. I did not believe you could win up the river. Myself and the other guys that were up there, even I think 2 other guys were up the river on the final day. But they were up there the other days, and I saw their weights. I saw what they were catching. I saw what I was catching. I really felt like I couldn't win up the river. So the problem was the main lake. I had one spot. I started on the first 2 days, and I caught, I think, 2 fish on the first day, 1 fish on the second day, and so I didn't have a lot of water, but I just knew that I couldn't win up the river, and I know I can't be worse than 10th now, right? Because you're on the final day, so. Anyway, so I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to stay on the main lake, and I'm going to just try to have to figure it out. I just want to see how the day goes. So I started off on the same spot I started the first 2 days, and I didn't catch anything. Ran around a bunch, and then I went in the back of the cove, and I found a bunch of bait and started catching fish pretty quick. I actually. And it's pretty cool because it's all on camera. I lost the first fish I hooked, and it's not a micro jig, and it was a big one. It's all on camera. Like I said, it was between 5 and 7, and if you saw the weights there, that's a monster right now. I mean, giant, way bigger fish in there, but for fishing right now, that's a really big one. So I ended up I ended up losing that fish, devastating, because I didn't have a fish survival. I didn't even know if I was going to get a bite the whole day, because that's how tough it was. I shook that off quickly. Shortly after, I ended up catching 3 fish back to back to back, all on a spinning rod, and that settled me down. And they were exactly what I was hoping. They were better quality. They were. I think I had my first 3 fish. I think I had a 2.5, a 2 1/4, and a 3. And I told myself, I felt like if you caught 12.5 pounds, you got a shot to win. Looking at the weights the day before.
Right.
So I knew that 2.5 pounders were valuable, really valuable. And up the river, I was catching 140s, 150s, 170s. So I caught those 3 quick. And I just said, you know what? I had a cameraman on my boat, and I said, I caught those so quick and I lost the big one. I said, I think I'm not going to leave here the entire day. But in the back of my mind, I said, man, well, if I am here for like 3 hours and I don't get another bite, I might have to go up the river now just to catch 2 more and then maybe come right back out if I needed to. But the last thing you want to do is have 3 good fish and then come in with 3. So
Right.
About an hour went by, and I stayed in that general area, and I ended up I got 3 more bites, and one of them was bigger than the first one I lost. I never saw the second big one. Again, this one's on camera. I fought it for like 30 seconds. It was on a drop shot. I didn't even know I hooked it at first. It was the only common denominator between the 2 that I lost, where I didn't feel, those were the 2 bites I didn't feel all week. And I lifted up, and I thought I was stuck on a rock, and I kept shaking it, trying to pop it off the rock, and then it just started taking off. So I never really got to lean into it the way I like to. And I fought it for about 30 seconds, a long time. And it was a monster. I couldn't do anything with it. So I'm just, hey, no problem. It's open water. I'll fight it all day if I have to. But she came off. It was devastating, because I knew at that point I just lost I told myself, you have 3 solids in the boat. You lost a 5. You might have already been able to win with 4 fish, with a 5 and a 3 and a 2.5. Then you lose another big one. So that hurt. But then quickly after, I caught 2 more. I filled out my limit. So I had kind of 2 spurts of 3 bites apiece, or one was 4, because I lost 2 and I caught 5. So the second spurt, I caught 3, I think, and I lost that 1. And I had 1186 on my scale. I did not have service where I was, though, so I didn't know where I was.
Right.
Even though I was on the main lake, I didn't have service in one little area. So I stayed there for another hour or so, and it really was dying down. You could tell the activity was dying. It wasn't happening. So I ran out to the lake, and I went to a spot. And when I went to that spot, I entered all my fish, and I checked the Tourney X platform, and I was in first. So I knew that it was, again, fishing really tough. But I knew Joe Uribe he had 4 fish, but just a little bit less weight, but he only had 4. So I knew if he caught a 5th one, he'd pass me. Shortly after that, he passed me. He moved up to, I think, 13 1/4 on the score tracker. And so I had a 169 in the live well, and I told myself I needed a 3.5 pounder to surpass what Joe is assuming he has. And I hadn't weighed a 3.5 pounder in 3 days. I had hooked 2 big ones, but I hadn't caught one. So there's a couple hours left, and I put everything away. I felt like the best chance I had at catching a big one, even though I lost a big one earlier on a drop shot and a jig, I felt like at that time of day, with the conditions, the best way I had a chance of catching a solid fish was on a topwater. And so I just put the topwater in my hand. I was a little discouraged because I felt that wind slipping away. There's 100 boats on the water. This is not the time to hope for a 3.5 pounder in the middle of the day with 100 boats. You want to do that early in the morning or whatnot. The river wasn't an option because I just felt like there's no way I'm going to get a 3.5 pound bite up the river for me. Some guys can, but not for me. So I put the top one on my hand, and I just went as fast as I possibly could, and to everything that looked good. Again, I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't know where to go. So I'm just looking for things, driving around the lake, kind of looking and just driving and looking. So that looks good. And with about 20 minutes left, it was 12:40. I weighed in at 1. I was over by the dam, and I was fishing this line of trees and these humps and all this stuff, and I never got bit. And I looked over by the dam, and there was like 3 little sticks sticking up. It was 75 yards away or so, and there were some nice rocks. It was calm over there. There was no boats hitting it. It was kind of behind this little island, and I was like, man, what the heck? Put the trolling motor on 10, zoom over there. I make 2 casts, and it was the craziest thing because people who know me or when you see video of me, this thing comes out, people are going to see I'm kind of a spaz, high energy, high emotion. I hook a fish. It's controlled emotion. I always tell people it's controlled. I'm emotional. I'll run around the boat. It's very controlled. But when that 3.5 ate my top water, I saw it eat it, and there's 20 minutes to go. I said I needed 3.5. I watched this 3.5 crush my top water, and I could see in the water that it's roughly, it's a good one. And it was like I was so emotional that I was emotionless. It was the fish catch in my life where I was so calm. I reeled it right in. I grabbed it from the front deck. I mean, that took a minute. And there was no camera on that last fish. The camera boat, he got everything else on camera, but he had left at that time. I threw it in my live well, and I was just like, did this just happen? I put it on my scale, and it said 343, so basically 3.5. And I was like, did this just happen? And now it's still, nothing's official. You don't know.
Right.
I have the river but I knew that I did not have a shot to win if I didn't catch it. And so I put it in the live well, fished for 10 more minutes, got back, and Jared Littner weighed 1341, and I ended up winning. I beat him by a 5/16-ounce drop shot weight.
Wow.
That is what it ended up coming down to. So it was very extreme. It was very special. It'll be in my memory forever. Especially that last fish. It was just like, it was surreal. It was a blessing. So
that's awesome. I mean, that's what those are the stories you love to hear out there, just grinding it out. When we started this, you had mentioned something. You said, I'm looking to make the elites. I'm looking to go fish that. I'm looking to go, back there and do that. That was a dream. Has this changed your mind at all a little bit about doing that, being that this is right here? You don't have to go anywhere and you're going to be in California with the Apex. Has this changed that at all? Being here with the Apex?
So honestly, no, but what I would love to do, if it works out, I know it's a big if, we're moving to Alabama here, and I would love, if the schedule allows, I will literally drive back and fish Apex. Mm-hmm. That's how much I love what they're doing, and how much it's the funnest game. I'm the most competitive person ever. I got a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old, and I don't even let them beat me in games because I'm so competitive. And at 4 games, it doesn't matter. And the amount of fun and adrenaline and emotion in that Apex format brings, right. It is worth me coming back. I'll say that 100%. If I can and I can make it work, I will. My dream is to fish at the biggest national level. I know Apex is definitely the biggest in the West, and what they're doing, right. Where they're going, and if they ever make a national presence back east, I'm always an advocate for Jeremy, Randy, and for Apex Wild West, 100%. But I want to, where I feel my calling is, my passion is, I want to be competing against not just the best in the West. And I'm not saying that's all Apex is, because there's some elite thing. But the biggest stage in bass fishing is right now is the Bassmaster Classic or the MLF, and that's where my future, I believe, is. And again, right. I'm not. Can't compete with that or be there, because I love the road that they're on and I love what they're doing. And I think for a lot of guys that maybe their career won't allow them to go back east, or they don't want to move back east, I think Apex gives a perfect place where you can now be on the West Coast and fish at a very high level and not have to leave. So, and complete, transparency and honesty, I love, and like I said, I think I wish Apex was around years ago. Because we needed something like this on the West Coast with the publicity, turns, and the excitement. But for me, we're moving to Alabama for multiple reasons, so that's kind of where my journey's headed.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, Alabama's a great place back there. I know that a lot of guys end up moving that way, that they want to fish on the national level. Given your choice, Bassmaster or MLF, which one are you gonna? They both have their, I think, let me preface this when I say this. I think that the Bassmaster, for me, I think the Bassmaster has always been the number one. It just is. Doesn't matter what else was going up against it. It's always been that. And then you have the MLF, but the MLF kind of robbed, a little bit of all those guys. It took a little bit of, all the big names kind of went over there. But I think they went over there because of exactly something you said when we started this interview was when you guys started this Apex, the anglers had a lot to do with it. They had a lot of input. They had a lot to say about it. The MLF gave them that option. Bassmaster was still run by Bassmaster. They may listen, but it's still their call. It's still their thing. Whereas MLF was that. Saying that and seeing what you have from the Apex, which one of those would you rather be in if you have your option?
Yeah. So
We have a simple price, simple process at Toyota Marin. That means when you get here from drive up to delivery, you will work with one person from start to finish. Also, the simple price means that the price you see on the window is the price that you'll see on the contract. That's the same price that you'll see on the website. There will be no differentiation. We've asked our customers what they want. They've told us that that is what they want. They do not want to spend hours negotiating. So we take that right out of the equation and give you our very best price right up
Your option.
Yeah. So my path right now is because Bassmaster doesn't have opens out west. So my path right now is the MLF Opens, the Toyota Series. Right. So if I'm top 5 this year, right now I'm sitting in second. Then I could qualify for the Big 5 Tour. So they have they have the Bass Pro Tour, which is the 8 guys, that everybody's familiar with, and then they have kind of the one level below that, but it's still $5,000 entry fees, 100,000 first place, 150 guys only.
That's the Sportsman's Warehouse Tour, they call it now.
So my path right now is qualify for the Sportsman's Tour, whatever, Sportsman's Warehouse Tour, and do that next year. And at the same time, and now that's 5 fish, which I love. So at the same time, I'm going to try to fish the Bass Opens and fish the BASS. For me personally, here's what I tell everybody. I'm not one or the other. I love what MLF is doing to grow the sport. They are definitely growing the sport. All about that. For me personally, I like to fish for bigger fish. I like to strategize for bigger fish. I like the old school way of bass fishing. Bass fishing, in my opinion, has always been about the biggest fish. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old. You're more excited when you catch a 5-pounder than you are a 1-pounder. So for me, personally, I want to fish 5 fish formats, and between the MLF Sportsman's Warehouse Tour, whatever that is, and the Elite Series is bigger. Right. So my final destination, at least right now, is to go there. Now, here's what could happen. I might qualify for the Sportsman's Warehouse Tour and then be in the top 5 in points for that, if I'm fortunate, and then I qualify to fish the other one. Am I going to turn that down? Especially if I haven't qualified on the Elite Series? Right. No, I'm probably not going to turn that down, but that doesn't also mean that I may not at the same time try to qualify. So I don't know where my journey is going to take me, but I know that if you're asking me right now, I've always been a fan of 5 fish, your biggest 5. And so my journey, I feel like right now my ending goal currently is the Elite Series. That could change because the road to get there is I got to fish MLF first on the Big 5 to get back there, fish something, and then I can fish the Opens at the same time. So at least that's my thought process. That's my goals and desires.
Okay. So, competitive people, I'm one of them. We also live in a world of reality. You're going to go from California. You're going to be back there fishing in waters that, I'm not sure that you're all that familiar with. What do you think what are you giving yourself as a success time period to make that, to say, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this in a year. I'm going to do this in 2 years. I'm going to do this in, what are you giving yourself?
Yeah. Well, so if I can back up a little bit and say one of the reasons I was really fortunate and happy to fish Apex as well is because I knew it was going to help train me to go to these lakes I hadn't been to, and with 0 practice. So back there, you get 2 days of practice, but you're also going against guys who are born and raised out there, been fishing these circuits for many years. They're hammers, the whole deal. But so I figured Apex is going to help me more than anything develop quicker, faster thinking, processing, adjustments, all those things. And so, kind of the way that I'm hoping, you look at like a guy like Ty Al, right? This is his first year. He's got 2 top 10 cuts and a top 50 cut. He's doing phenomenal. I told myself last year was the first year I fished a full Pro-Am circuit because it's when I finally got a boat that I could compete at a high level. Everything else, everybody kind of knows me as a Delta guy before that. My goal originally was a 5-year plan on the West Coast. I was planning on fishing the West Coast for 5 years, every major tournament, and to try to get to a competitive level where I felt like I was maybe one of the best in that 5-year time frame. I had a lot of things in life, not just fishing, but a desire to go to Alabama for other reasons as well. But then also, I've had a really good year and a half at bodies of water that I thought were going to take me a long time. I top 10 at Shasta. I top 10 at Clear Lake twice. I've top 10 at Camanche, top 10 to so I've had all these top 10s, and they've been really encouraging and confident building for me. And I did it way faster than I thought. Not to say that I'm going to go back there, and I'm not sitting here claiming I'm going to go back there and top 10 everywhere I go back there, but it gave me the confidence that I believe, and I believe I have. For me, I have the game plan, which is strategy, versatility, execution. I perfect that, have the confidence. I have some really good friends, Justin Lucas and some other elite guys that I'm close with that I'll be moved next to, that I'm sure I can find out the basics of the lakes I'm going to get out of layout. So to answer your actual question, I'm not giving myself an actual time frame to see if this works or not. I have a career that I run at the same time. So I'm really that I don't have a lump sum of money that if I run through it, I'm done or not. I would love to fish as long as I can, that God wants me to, whatever. So I don't have a desire to say it didn't work out, because I'm the kind of person, this is me just saying this, my mindset. I'm not trying to be else. I see failure as I'm going to grow from it. And my mindset, I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm not trying to be anything, but I don't believe I'm going to continue to fail. Anything I've done in my life, from little things to big things. I'm not saying I'm going to be the best right now or anything like that, but I just feel like I will figure it out. And that's my mindset. So I don't have a mindset of if it doesn't work out. Now it may take me 2 years, 3 years, 5 years before traction really hits and before I'm like, okay, I get to feel this. But I'm not giving myself 2 years if it doesn't work out. I just know that I'm going to go and grind as hard as I can on every tournament and enjoy the ride, enjoy the fun, enjoy the people. I love driving across the country. I love scenic things. I love meeting people. I love experiences, and I love fishing new bodies of water. So as long as I can qualify, and if it's God's will, then I'll do it, man. I don't have a time frame to say no.
Hey, that's great. I mean, that's a great way to approach it. I like hearing that, that it's not like, I got to do this in 2 years or I'm out, this is a lot of everybody I've kind of interviewed it comes down a little bit to money. Guys are like, I don't know how long I can afford to do it, because it is expensive. You're leaving California. Alabama is a place there's some financial reasons to move there over being here in California for sure. And if you're going to be in that area back there, I love seeing the California guys. Don't worry, I'm going to definitely keep your phone number, because when I start seeing you win back there, I'll need you back on. So, but it's pretty awesome to see that go back there. A lot of those guys have done that. There's a couple holdouts that are doing the travel, Skeeton Ish and a couple of the guys, but a lot of them, like you said, Lucas has gone back there, Martin's gone back there, Luke Clausen went back. It's
Mark Daniels. Yep.
Yeah. Mark Daniels, there's a lot of guys that have left here and gone there, and they're, there's a lot, but I've had a couple interviews now, and I've talked to those guys, and it is a different world back there when it comes to this. And if you become a household name back there, boy, they'll pull for you hard. Bass fishing back there compared to here it's a main sport. I mean, it's up there with football, with college football. It's pretty intense.
That's why I want to be in the heart of it. In Alabama, again, there's a lot of reasons. It's not just fishing, but Alabama, Guntersville specifically, I think if you ask a lot of people, that is the heartbeat of bass fishing. Is if you draw a radius around Guntersville from Florida to Texas, everywhere around, that's the heart of it. And so, and I feel like, look, I mean, Ish and Jared Littner and whoever else that stayed back here, and they've made it work. For me, I kind of have the mindset, I want to give myself the absolute best chance.
Absolutely.
And best chance is if I'm living there and I can go fish the Tennessee River chain, any day I want, because they're all within an hour and a half, 2 hour radius of wherever I'm, or there's a lot of lakes in that radius. So I can get familiar with those lakes maybe maybe I don't have a tournament there for 3 years, right? But then, hey, one of the Elite Series stops there. But guess what? I lived next to it and I fished it, 20 times. So now I got a feel for it and whatnot. So I feel like, and being just, and I think in anything in life, right? The more you put yourself in the center of it, I think not that you can't do well not doing it, but I think you give yourself a better opportunity to do well when you're in the heart of it, when you're in the center of it.
Right.
And here's the other thing. I got 3 kids and an amazing wife, and I don't want to spend an extra 30 days a year or 40 days a year driving extra days back and forth from California. I'd rather make a 12-hour drive from, Alabama to Lake Tahoe or whatever it is and be back in the 1-day drive instead of it being 3 days each way and missing my kids for 4 more days on top of the whole tournament. So for my family, and like you said, financial reasons, I'm able to do my business wherever, which is beautiful. I got clients all over the country as it is, so that's nice. And so because my income's not affected, you go to Alabama and everything's cheaper. Taxes are cheaper, gas is cheaper, groceries are cheaper, houses are cheaper. So your money goes even further, which is nice.
Right. No, definitely. Well, I know you got another show to get to, and I want to thank you very much, Bill, for coming on. And gosh, congratulations on that. Is this your biggest win out west so far?
Yeah, I've won 2 other pro-ams on the Delta, but I would definitely say by far this is bigger than those. The media coverage way bigger, the publicity bigger, the paychecks bigger, just everything is bigger, and the competition. Some people might say, hey, there's only 30 to 50 guys in this thing, but it's the cream of the crop of the 30 to 50. It's not, not to speak bad about anybody, but it's not just 32 to 50 guys. This is some of the, if not all of the best of the 32 anglers on the West. I mean, there's some guys that need to be fishing this for sure that have that skill set. I'm sure that'll be in it in the next year or two. But it's so to beat those guys, it's special when you beat guys like Jared Linder fishing MLF for a living. That's what he does. To beat him, to beat the Greg Gutierrez is in the Ken Maws and all these guys. I mean, I think everybody, they're all name worthy. Right. That's not just like beating one of those guys and then 50 guys that kind of just run on a Saturday. It's a much bigger deal.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to see how many guys, the Wild West hasn't been around that long either. And the Apex, obviously, it's the inaugural year. But coming into this next, probably, I would say 5 years, I think you're going to see some names actually rise pretty quick. I mean, there's guys like Luke Johns out there. There's PJ. There's, some of the older guys, the Zach Thompsons and that sort of thing. Those guys are still out there grinding. Greg Gutierrez is out there. And I mean, these are guys, Austin Wilson, he got to go back, he fish back there, did everything, came back out here. I think those guys are going to do exactly, I don't want to say they're going to do exactly what you're doing, but they're looking at this as a young guns going, this can lead to not only the Apex being out here and being in the West and growing, but it can lead to going back to fish the elites, can grow to go fish some of that because of exactly what you're talking about, where it's giving me the tools to learn how to better myself, not only in fishing, but in how to market myself. When I talked to Jeremy, he talked about that, that we're giving them the avenues on how to market themselves, how to advertise, how to push their beyond their own limits and get into the business side of it.
Correct. Absolutely. I'm telling anybody who's watching this, again, I want to reiterate, I'm not paid. I'm not forced. Right. It is the circuit to fish. If you want to go fish at the highest level in the West, if you want to push yourself to new levels and make yourself a much better fisherman, normal tournaments are not going to advance you the way Apex does with the format and the quickness and the Tourney X platform and the no net. And it's so much fun. I'm telling you, it's the funnest style of fishing I've ever done. Even if I go back to the elites and I fish the elites, I fish 5-fish format my whole life. Not as fun. I'm doing it obviously for different reasons, but this is fun. And it's not just fun. I mean, this is growing to be the biggest payouts, biggest publicity, biggest media. I mean, it's going to be on national television. I mean, there's basketball on the West right here in Apex and Wild West with Jeremy and Randy. And again, I thank them for what they're doing. And I'm a true believer. And like I said, I love it so much that I will come back from Alabama if the schedule allows me to fish Apexes next year. I will drive the other way across the country. those events specifically because I want to be a part of it as long as I possibly can.
Right. All right, Phil, this time I'll actually let you go here. So, hey, again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on your win. And we'll be pulling for you and rooting for you out there everywhere you go. So thanks for representing very well. And I hope you have a great time back there and hope your dreams come true.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Guys, everybody, thank you for tuning in on Wired for Bass. And this is Big Ed, and we're going to say good night, and you all have a great day.
See you later.